role as a director of products means that I have to talk with our internal business and client to understand their needs and then look into what technologies are out there that could help to fill those needs. And overlaying on top of that the data analytics, I work with a group of data scientists because most of these products either produce a lot of data or consume a lot of data, so we need that element as well.
Hi everyone, Gurps Nijjar, co-founder of Avatar Digital. We've been working in augmented reality for 2.5 years, more recently virtual reality. We've built specific applications for construction, learning, retail, off-plan construction, tourism. Specifically what I'm doing now is working with business experts to use AR and VR, mixed immersive experiences to solve real business problems. And it's customizing the tech to actually look at what is it engagement, is it deepening learning, is it better decision making. So these are the new kind of concepts that I'm working on with specific business verticals now.
Great.
Or
Without the microphone, okay? Yes. So as we move forward, you've now heard about us. We would like to know what our audience is, who we are. How many people would describe themselves as a C-level corporate type person? A few, okay. How many have actually had an immersive experience? Quite a few. Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. Anything else you would like to know about your audience? Yeah?
Those of you who have tried AR or VR experience, how many of you have liked it?
That's a great question. Very good. Okay. Good. So we will be doing question and answers at the end of the session. So if you have questions along, we will save some time for that at the end. Alrighty, so moving right along. We'd like to talk a little bit about your companies, and maybe we start with you, Alejandra, the processes within your business, how you adapted the emerging technologies, your processes with these emerging technologies.
Okay. Facility management is not one of the most advanced industries in general. To a certain extent, we are behind what we call the digital transformation is something that is starting but has not matured yet compared with many other sectors. However, it's at the same time an industry which is an inflection because we rely heavily in manpower and there is also so much that you can make a person efficient, but actually AR and VR is precisely one of the tools that we expect to use to do that. But as an industry, we need to change our ways of working because our margins are very low, our clients keep expecting from us better services at lower cost, and the current model is not sustainable. So technology is something that we have started to work a lot. We are starting to use IoT, we are starting to use not 5G yet because I'm not here, but LoRaWAN and other communication devices. And we are starting with these early days for us with AR and VR. And I have to be honest, we have some hesitations and doubt in terms of how much we should jump at this stage or whether we should wait for some time until this achieves certain levels. However, areas where we see a huge potential for us are about giving more tools to our people, particularly field workers and engineers who have to go to buildings and have to see what happened with the equipments that are failing or whether they are operating correctly. And for that, we see huge potential, particularly on AR, in the ability to see an equipment and have augmented information about what this equipment is about, what's the correct way to operate it. But also in training engineers, we have a lack of enough resources. So VR helps us a lot to provide training to our engineers, although today is mainly around health and safety rather than the actual equipment itself, because we don't have enough content to provide in that space. And the other aspect is that we are more and more working in remote ways, so we can send an engineer today and we can have the expert people centrally providing help not only with voice but also with video. So theater is probably the main focus. The other area that we are starting to use quite a bit is on the drone side. We use it to... Okay.
I'm going to jump in just for a moment. And I know that the both of you have also experienced different processes within your businesses. So, Gurp, I'm going to ask you now to talk a little bit about your development within your AR and VR systems and your immersive technologies and the processes that it entails.
Sure. Okay. So
I'm from a tech background and I work for a tech company. When we started working with AR, broadband speed, accessing 3D, distributing that through different platforms, all of that was very challenging. And obviously with the new 5G, 4G being very compatible, mirrored with the new AR kits in smartphones, so iPhone 10s and the new Samsung Galaxies as well, they augment a room with their cameras automatically. Most products have 3Ds of their manufacturing stuff already. So that's making everything, bringing the price point down, is making the risk a lot more appealing to businesses. And that's why I think now everybody's kind of jumping in, because if the last 2-3 years were for experimenting or dipping your toes in, the tech, the connectivity, and the logic and people's experience with it, certainly AR, we're taking into next levels in how it's immersing into real business objectives, whether it's customer experience, inbound marketing, or what we call dispersing wisdom, learning complicated subject matter, which could be health and safety, it could be a marketing tool, it could be internal training people, it could be finding real problems, so you're increasing efficiency. So we're actually realizing AR goes into every single business vertical that you can imagine. And that's the exciting place we're at the moment.
Yeah. Alex, I know that you've developed quite a few, about 10 apps, and have dispersed those within the industry. So your processes in this relationship to that?
So our focus is the marketing, less of the production. But first of all, I want to second that. Yeah, it seems like VR and AR is going basically everywhere. And the more we're looking at the tech, the more we see that the area of possible applications is just way more than we could have even conceived like 2 years ago when we were starting. Our problem that we are trying to solve with VR was that at a tech show, trade show presence. So GE creates all sorts of large devices and small devices. There's aircraft engines, there's medical equipment, there's dead tank circuit breakers. And being all over the place, we take devices to all sorts of expos, and we end up just having this huge piece of machinery in a room filled with huge pieces of machinery. And we end up selling the product and not what it actually does. And it's okay. Good, it works for everybody, but we wanted to have an edge on this. We wanted to spice it up, so we started asking, well, how can we demonstrate what a dead tank actually does? What problem does it solve that the competition doesn't? And VR actually let us do this, because we started looking into all sorts of scenarios which are impossible to demonstrate in here. Obviously, it's remote locations, no need for hazard training, and all the other nice things that VR offers, but we also started adding a twist, focusing on entertainment value of the experience. So we try to step away from this pitch, VR experience being Wikipedia. We're trying to step into this being a demo, a promo, something that hooks people up, gets them excited, leaves them with a nice, memorable experience. And VR is great about making a memorable experience. And then this is where we take the client and pitch them and explain what this product, explain all the details, give them a folder and everything else.
So now I'd like to touch on a little bit some of the lessons learned. So all of you have had positive experiences. You all expressed that you had positive experiences with AR and VR. So what were some of the learnings along the way? Maybe there was a couple of hiccups, something that you would look back on and say, you know, we had just not done that. Let's hear a little bit about those things.
I have many, so just stop me at some point.
Let's give one each. Let's go.
Perfect. One of our biggest mistakes from the start was, and we actually understood this, we didn't really get it, that you can't build a VR experience in the same way that you would build a conventional experience. It's not a video, it's not a linear thing. You can build it as a linear thing, but you're going to do much better if you focus on what this new medium has to bring that nothing else brings. And this is the success part. So our mistake was from the start of not understanding this.
In our case, probably again, I'm coming more from the practical user perspective, is that engineers are kind of the main user for us. And there is a cultural shift that is not minor. When we have given these tools to some engineers, we have two types, either relatively old, very knowledgeable people, and relatively new, who are just learning. The newer ones are probably more willing to accept this technology, but the older ones feel uncomfortable in terms of, I know what I'm doing, so I don't need this support. Or what else are you doing with this type of technology? Are you monitoring my performance and things like that? So for me, that's one of the challenge more than mistake, I would call, that we are going to face more and more. And the other one that I could mention is that the challenge is that the system that we look at are many different, and a lot of them are legacy. So how we get content that is relevant for those legacy systems is still for me and for us a problem.
I agree quite strongly with your two examples. Just another one that we found was you can't use current thinking to develop future tech. By example, I mean decision making at high levels, C-level. They don't accept change because they don't understand what technology is. But again, it's not that important. But it's very hard to say to a C-level person that your opinions aren't that important. So introducing things at planning, what we've done is just reinvented our model. We just say, look, we're going to give you a proof of concept. We're not going to charge you anything because we're confident it's going to work. Then we're going to create a really simple MVP that's on a very low budget. It's going to give you business KPIs. Suddenly C-level people start listening to you, and they're suddenly interested in what's the game changer, what's the business benefit, is it efficiency saving, is it raising growth or penetrating different markets, whatever the KPIs are. And once you've proved it at micro level and not spent a lot of money, suddenly you have the buy-in at high-level C-level people. Before, we had C-level people telling us, this is what we need, here's a budget, and we were listening to them, and that was a fatal mistake.
So along that line of getting that buy-in, are you using immersive technologies to help the C-level people understand what your proof of concept is?
We are. That's a really interesting question, but we still get the same blockers. C-level people don't even like putting a headset on. It kind of disturbs them or anything out of the norm. And it's the psyche of a mind. Because they're very successful in what they do and they're comfortable, this tech is all for X, Y, Z generation. So if you want to be in business the next 5-10 years, you can't ignore this. But when you get a C-level person to even pick up an iPad and do something for 4 seconds, it's very hard to keep their attention. But we do still keep trying.
So you are using that then to get their buy-in?
Trying to, yes.
Yeah. So go ahead, Alex, please.
That the way to do this, the best way that works for us is when they actually get a reference from their peers. So you get one guy, you get him super excited, and then he goes and talks, then they digest it for a couple weeks, months, and then they're like, okay, let me try to.
Yeah, in our case, it's probably, for one side, our senior level tend to be 50 plus right now. And they are a bit scared of this. They don't want to look like they don't know. So they are a bit reluctant to try. That says almost everyone gets very impressed. And they have a wow factor that is cannot be achieved with almost anything else. And they were willing to try and do some testing, but when you want to do large project, there is still a lot of hesitation.
I think that's very relevant in the construction industry with facilities management and so forth. It's a slow moving industry. Good. So now that you shared sort of a couple of the challenges and so forth, what do you perceive that you need to find out or to develop in order to bridge these gaps and to overcome these challenges?
Sorry, the beginning was what do we need
to overcome these challenges? What's in the planning stages? What's coming down the pipe in terms of navigating these challenges? What is
your game plan?
Got you. So good question. I think the world is helping us massively. 5G, for example, huge game changer. Integrated tech, for example, the new phones. So that's normalizing the current space. There's phenomenal case studies that are game changers, like the IKEA case study in retail. They spent £170 million on their AR experience and made their money back in 6 months. And things like that help us justify why you should be investing in this kind of stuff in the future as well. I am a big fan of de-risking and planning. So I think the planning up front and setting expectations and then making sure you exceed them, it just means you've got educated decision making as opposed to it worked, it didn't work, but we've got no idea why.
In our case, probably, and this is more my personal opinion, we still lack of enough content to provide this experience. Again, as I mentioned, although you can see quite a bit of demos, they are demos. When you go to the real life and you try to, in our case, go to a building and you see an air condition from manufacturer A, which is 20 years old, and then you see another which is 5 years old, how you create the content to enable an engineer to see beyond what you can see with your naked eyes is still for me a problem. But the ecosystem that will support that will grow, but will be mainly with new equipment. We have to deal with a lot of legacy, and the buildings are going to stay there for 20 years, so we will keep living with those. And the other aspect probably is more to work as an industry that has individual companies, because we need to understand all the potential. And although there is competition, there are areas where we should collaborate to understand the use case and what works and what doesn't.
I think coming back to what you said about people on top not always having a concept of what it is that we're dealing with. Our biggest ally here is time itself, because as time progresses, people try more and more VR, and they actually get a better idea of what is possible. I faced a big struggle with people who either never tried VR or only tried one thing because they had an image imprinted about what it's going to be. And VR apps are really different. Right? You tried something you come to try my thing, you expect the same thing, you're going to be disappointed or you're going to be confused. So a big deal for us, especially dealing with the pipelines of how we build a VR app, a big helper is to have the top-level audience more accustomed to the medium, having more knowledge about the medium, and this way we will end up building something new or in a new way every time, sort of pushing off from where we started, instead of restarting. Am I making sense? Should I rephrase it?
You're on a good point. In terms of allowing the process to sort of work with itself.
Let me give you an example. So our VR apps, we build them in a way that we build video games. We are going through the concept stage where we have this very ugly thing that just proves the concept of the app itself and has the full timing. This is the stage that's not really presentable. So if I show it to my CMO, he looks at the gray boxes and he doesn't really understand how does this have any selling value. However, this is the way to build the app in a very effective way because we have everything to test from the get-go and we don't end up doing a lot of changes when the content is built, right? So I guess I'm talking more about this feeling.
In your head, would you like to add to that?
Well, welcome to the same world. That's the same problem as I was saying. C-level people not only don't want to understand technology unless it's broken, the only time they take us seriously is when something's broken. But they also don't understand our logic. Now, what you explained there is a beautiful de-risked approach to creating a brilliant outcome. You save money, you give people what you want, and it's got a lot of intelligent decision-making behind it. But the decision makers put the blockers on. So yeah, I feel that pain literally every day as well. But again, I think planning, proof of concept, business KPIs. There's only business KPIs that get C-level people interested, I find. Otherwise, they only call us when tech's broken, not when it works well.
That's very good. Yeah. So again, I'm we keep hearing about this
gap between perhaps the millennials and the Gen Xs and so forth, and bridging this gap and pulling in the consensus. So you've been talking a lot about sort of working from the top down. What have you been working on in terms of coming from the ground up and incorporating, as opposed to bringing the upper management all down, or not, and I don't want to say down or up in terms of good or bad, but to this understanding level? Has there been any development in bringing the millennials, the people who were born with tech in their crib, almost, up to the understanding of where the upper management is coming from?
Yeah, I can start. Again, our workforce is quite broad in terms of age. And there is a gap in terms of the use of this technology, but younger generation I don't think have a problem with that. The problem is to understand, for us to understand what is useful for them. And again, I'm not talking about gaming, I'm talking about people who have to fix stuff. And we need to understand where they need help. And that's not easy. We have created an app to help them, and we have made big mistakes in terms of we believe that we understand what they need, and we often don't. So with the AR, VR, and the same thing, is how we can help you to do your work. And it's hard because they don't necessarily see how this can help either. So it's a bit of the chicken and the egg.
They don't know what they don't know.
I would have a little less experience in this area because not many millennials can afford an aircraft engine, so my apps are not usually targeted at them. But from what I see in my team is it's the opposite problem, right? People just want to grab it and they want more. And they are really unpredictable. I love that. Like in VR, you can't really control where the people are looking, what they're doing, and they provide best testers in my life because they break stuff and they like it, and I like it, and we're really happy.
anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, sure. I agree with what both of these guys said, but I think there has to be a middle ground. The young are a little bit too excitable, but they're brilliant testers, but they jump in a bit too quickly. Maybe they don't think things through as properly. Maybe there's less business logic because there's less life experience. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It is what it is. But if you could take the wisdom of that and the wisdom of C-level and blend it into the future, that's got to be the dream wicket. And that's where our learning and bettering and educating why people need to do things. I think what you mentioned earlier is absolutely spot on. You first have to explain why somebody has to pick up a device, scan it, and it's going to give them those things. Otherwise, they just won't use it. The human blockers are remarkable. But one short video training, telling them why they should do it, suddenly you can have a very quick buy-in as well.
Sorry, and I will add just one point is that still, again, I don't come from the sides where they produce VR like you guys, coming from the user side. I believe most of, including the CEO, still see this as science fiction, still see this like 20 years, not 20, but 10 years time. I think time is another failure. I think in 2 years' time will be a different story, but still many people see that it's kind of a game, not a practical tool yet.
I think I should add that these two audiences, there is a tendency, again, talking about imprinted experience, right? What we're expecting from VR. With one type of audience, they just get impressed with huge explosion. Another type of audience that has seen all sorts of 3D movies and that millennials, the younger people, however we want to call them, they actually look deeper than that. They're not just impressed with the explosion, they want to see the story behind it, they want to see what can be done with it. And this impresses me so much. Because I don't want to be the guy who just builds the explosions. I want to be the guy who builds the stories, and these people, they make sense in whatever I do.
Very good. So now we have a little less than 8 minutes about to go. So we'd like to take some questions from the audience. Does anyone have any questions for our panel members? Yes.
Hi there, great discussion, thank you very much. Just a quick question in terms of building an AR story. So we're currently looking at building up a storyline for one of our businesses. And I'd be really interested in any best practice around building up that storyboard and the flow, the scripting, and also what's the best devices to do that on as well in terms of a fully immersive.
Good question, first of all. First of all, I would say plan the story how you would any story, because a story is a story. Then you should emphasize the bits that are very specific to that story, maybe that are conducive for AR and VR. So you should only focus AR and VR on the gold nuggets of your story, if you like. And that's where you're using tech with an actual business logic behind it. I would focus on one device first, because it's cheaper, get it to work. It's very easy then to replicate into other devices. But when anybody says, let's do it on both, don't, because you just end up burning double the cash. Make it work on one, make it give you the right outcomes on one, then replicate into the other platforms.
Yeah, in our case, I will come back to the point of understanding our users, understanding what they need, and even how they do things. An expert on this, what do you do first? What do you do second? Understand all those steps, and then try to replicate on what of those steps AR more than VR in our case can help them.
Have you seen Bandersnatch? So my advice would be don't go for a linear story. Think about story with branches. If you're going 3DoF VR, I'm going to assume, I don't know about AR story, but if you're going 3DoF, think about the branches, because it's going to make more use of what's happening. Also, one of the big things that we need to constantly pay attention to is that you have no idea where the user is looking, and there are ways to bait the user with sound, with video, with the flow of the story itself. But you also always need to account for the fact that some people will be looking the other way. So maybe this story is not just branching, maybe this story is also three-dimensional. But this is a hell of advice I'm giving you. I mean, this is a crazy thing to build.
Some other hands. There's jump from someone in the back there. Yeah, stand up.
Hi guys, Philip is my name. I work with a mechanical engineering company in Ireland, and we build bespoke automation machines. So I use an Oculus Rift and SolidWorks and SimLab Composer, and I do failure modes, effects analysis, and design. It's very useful as well for risk assessment of machines. I'm a bit disappointed on the buy-in from the senior level management of the company, so I'm just looking for some advice on how to get them more interested. I actually presented it to the CEO, and he was saying, "Oh, I've used it before, I got a pain in my head." And I think it might have been on a new old headset. So yeah, just looking for some advice there on how to get the buy-in.
I think I kind of mentioned the problem. I think I've met your company before, actually. Same C-level people you talk to every day. It's going to be tricky, but I would say if you've got a polished MVP that's got business logic behind it, they won't even look at the tech. They want to see the maths and the formulas and the business problems that you're solving. Then as long as the tech looks good, they'll buy into it. But it has to be based on a P&L and money, unfortunately, not whether it's AR, VR, or something else that's achieving it. I don't think C-level people really care about that. They just want to see what you're doing, why, what's the cost benefit, and if you present it on a one-pager, they'll make their decision in 5 minutes.
Yeah, obviously give them numbers, but honestly, there's no real good numbers in this industry. There's a lot of make-believe statistics, but that's going to help. My advice would be sell around. So you have VR. You sell VR by putting headset on people. Put it on as many people in the office as you can. Put it on his, not peers, but maybe his subordinates. Get people talking about this. Get people invested a little. Let them throw in some suggestions and ideas. So they get invested. They will try to pitch you higher up. Perhaps that's going to be a helping thing. Also, think about stuff that is impossible to do without VR. Right? This is going to be the unique thing that you're pitching because of those things which are not possible to do any other way.
I do agree that at the end it has to be the bottom line of this. In our cases, there are a few cases that are potentially quite compelling. There is a lot about how we automate our work and give more power to tools to our engineers, because that means that we may need fewer engineers, or we may need engineers with fewer skills, which is very important. So you can build the case around that. And the other area, which is more for our client, is to demonstrate that we can identify failures on their equipment early. And when we work with manufacturers, that is something quite important, and we can push the number behind it.
Also, one of the things that was mentioned are case studies. Look at your competitors, look at, even if they're not your competitor, but what are other people doing? Use examples. If they see other big companies, even small companies, doing things and being motivators and leaders in this industry, oftentimes they want to keep up with the Joneses. Yeah. So we have about a minute left, minute and a half left. Is there anyone else have a question that can be answered in about a minute? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Guys, really enjoyed that. Just a query on the use and distribution of the hardware. So when we talk about the new release of the Quest, that's obviously great for spatial tracking. We had the Oculus Go previously. So I work for a company that deals with soft skills and hard skills learning and training. And just jumping on the back of that gents discussion, the issue we have is buy-in on the amount of hardware that they need to purchase. With that business model of that learning and development, without the sort of same business model as mobile phones, where you pay a monthly subscription for 12 months and you get to upgrade the device, how do you solve these issues, and where do you see it going in the future?
We've got about 30 seconds.
I think learning already is exploding, AR and VR. Specific answer to your question, like I think you covered, you need to build it into your license fee or yearly plan. So instead of a big upfront, you're breaking it up over monthly installments that are paid off over 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, in our case, there are some training that everyone has to do, thousands of people, in which case it's easy, relatively simple, but the fact that there are thousands makes sense, and that's probably the main case for now.
We basically have to invest in everything that comes out, because in marketing you sort of need the newest stuff. So obviously Quest is the first thing that we buy right now. So for us it's not that much of a choice really. We just know that we have to invest. We put some money aside every time, and basically we establish a percentage that then we invest in new marketplace, new hardware, new software.
Thank you very much, Alex, Alejandro, Gurp, and thank you very much to the audience for participating. And we hope you enjoyed this session. Have a great rest of your event.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Jill, Alejandro, Alexander, and Gurps.